Greetings, my crafty friends. It's Julie Creek from Creek Bank Creations. I'm excited to be with you here today to celebrate Card Making Day. How great is that? It's a great time for you and I to get together to make a card. So I'm here today to share with you 2 cards with new product and a surprise. So our first card will be this card that is an A2 card, folds flat. Stand up to make a nice presentation for the person that you send it to. And we'll be using our new layered pumpkin stencil, which makes this beautiful background that you can use on cards, mini albums, or scrapbook pages. And we will learn about our new pumpkin stamp and die set. Really makes a nice Thanksgiving presentation. Then we're making 2 cards. Our second card will use that same layered pumpkin stencil background, and then we will add the zip strip die. This is a fun die. It's one of those dies I love having in my stash because of the creative things you can do with it. In this case, we're going to pull this tab open to reveal a surprise for the person that we send it to. Super simple card to make, but it has a great presentation, and when you send it to your friends, they get a total kick out of it. Super great. Now, because it's World Card Making Day, we need to have a surprise, right? Come on. We do. So today, for World Card Making Day, we're offering a 15% discount on all the orders on our website. You will need to use the coupon code CARD, C-A-R-D, at checkout. That'll save you 15%. Orders over $50 after the discount have been applied will ship free in the United States. The only thing that's excluded with the coupon code are the 12 by 12 paper collections. So you can shop the whole website, excluding those paper collections, and pick up new product and have some really nice things for 15% off. We're excited about that. So let's get the camera down, let's get started and make some fun cards on World Card Making Day. We have turned the camera down and we're ready to get going. So what we have here is this fun A2 vertical type card. We'll go over how to do that here in a minute, and then you'll see that we're using the new Pilgrim stamp and die set. It has the Happy Thanksgiving sentiment on it, and then it has Thankful for You. It has some squash and pumpkins, your pilgrims, and then your big stamp down here, which is the sentiment for the inside of your card, says, "Hope there's butter for your roll and whipped cream for your pie." So often we're making cards and we don't have that sentiment to put on the inside of the card. In this case, I included it in the stamp set, so we have those. I've stamped those and die cut them previously before we got going here. And you'll notice with this set that the dies are included in the back, so it's a stamp and die set. Now we also will be using the Creek Bank Creations mini scalloped oval and the stitched oval set. These are the dies that we've used for this panel that is attached to the front of the card, and they are really go-to products to have in your stash if you don't have them. They are designed to fit one on top of the other, and so they work well together. Now the other product that we're going to be working with is the new layered pumpkin stencil. Now when you open this package, it is a 3-part stencil. So when you open that set up, you'll find there are 3 different stencils in there, and we will go over how to use the stencils today. Fun. Now, so that's what we have. I'm going to teach you how to make this card, and we will get started. The first thing you'll want to do is work on your card base, and we are going to start with a cream piece of cardstock, and we are going to cut that 4.25 by 11, and then we will score at 5.5 and 2.75. We will put that up on our scoreboard and score at 2.75 and 5.5. That will give us the base card that we need. We will fold that and fold that again. And now we have the base card. Now we will need mats for these 2 panels, and one for the inside, and I have those cut and ready to go. I'm going to bring up my grid now. Whenever I do this kind of stencil work, I like to use my grid mat. So I have my grid, and what you'll need to do is cut 2 pieces of cardstock in white that are 4 by 2.5. So I have those here. Those are the 2 panels. And then we need 1 piece 4 by 5.25. Now when I do this kind of stencil work, I like to take my tape and put a piece of tape down and put my paper down in the tape. And when I do this, I'm going to line it up on the grid so that I know that my paper is square along that grid. Put a second piece here because we have one at the top and one at the bottom, and we'll need that second one, and I'll put that right underneath there, line it up nice and straight. Now let's come over here and do the other side. We're going to put a piece of tape down here and do the same thing, and we'll have to do one and then do the other one as we do the stencil work. There we go. Now when you open the stencil, you will not be able to read the numbers. You can see the numbers on here, 1, 2, 3. Those are laser etched, and I have previously prepped this stencil to get it ready to use, and I have already completed a video on how to do this process. I will link it in the description below, but what you're going to do is cover this stencil with the permanent Sharpie and then come back with Goof Off and wipe it all off. And what you will find is that the parts of the stencil that are laser etched will pick up the Sharpie, and the Goof Off will take off the excess, so all you have is the dark etchings that you need to line up with the previous color and the numbers. And it clearly states right here that we're going to start with number 1. So we're going to take stencil number 1 and we're going to set that over our paper. And I have found that it is important that you look at this bottom edge and get your bottom edge the way you like it, because that's going to be really prominent on your card right here. It's going to show pretty prominently. So you want to work at centering it side to side the way you want those pumpkins to lay up on your stencil, and then think about how that's going to look on that bottom edge. And then once we have that designed figured out, we're going to take our stencil tape, and I'm going to tape that on the top and bottom, and that is going to secure it. So I'm using cardstock that is appropriate to take the ink. I'm holding it down so it's not moving, and I am using a dye-based ink for this. I'm using the Catherine Pooler Orange Twist today, and I'm going to use our stencil brush. Now the stencil brush I designed with an extra large barrel so that it's easy to hold in your hand, and you're going to pull that lid off, and you can use it as a tight brush like this, or you can use it as a loose brush. And if I'm covering a fairly large area here with the pumpkin, and I'm going to leave that back. So when I do my stencil work, I'm going to use my finger to hold that back, and I'm going to push this into the ink and pick up ink. And when I start, I'm going to start off to the side. I'm going to do small circles, and I'm going to work my way across the stencil all the way around. Each time I pick up ink, I'm going to push that down into the ink, and then I'm going to swirl it across the paper. Now, we are using the Catherine Pooler ink. This is a very soft pad. It's a spongy pad, and if you are used to using a distress ink pad or the Stampin' Up kind of ink pad, those pads are hard, and you can pick up ink like this. With the Catherine Pooler inks or any other company that has a softer surface, you want to just push the brush gently down into the ink side to side so that you don't damage your ink pad. I've had a lot of questions from our customers lately about stenciling, so I'm kind of going over this in more detail. Now we have a really nice base of color there. what I'm going to do is pick up stencil number 1, and I'm going to move it over and place it on the other piece that I have set up and ready to go. And I want to look at my design and center it side to side and top and bottom. Push that down, and then we will pick up our ink and we will do the same thing on this side. Now I will tell you, I really like to keep my ink pads on the drier side. The Catherine Pooler ink pads are extremely juicy, which is great if you like really juicy ink pads, but I really don't. I think I can get a cleaner look with the stencil brush with a drier pad, and so I like to keep them on the drier side. And then if I want heavier color, I can just come back and pick up more ink with the brush and go in. Now, if I'm concerned about these little bitty leaves and I think I need to get those better, then I can pull the band up, and that will push all those bristles together, and I will be able to go in and hit those little spots and get them exactly the way I want them. So we really, when we're using the J brush, we're really using 2 brushes at once. So if I wanted to use another color of orange, I would take my brush, clean it off on my pad, and then pick up the other color of orange from the orange pad. I am not doing that today. We're going to go with a different color of yellow. So I'm going to pull that off, and then we will go find stencil number 2 and add the second layer for the background of our card. I'm getting my stencil tape. Now when I come back in to line this up, I can simply look at the pumpkins that I've already stenciled and use the guidelines that are on the stencil to line that up exactly the way it needs to be. So you can see the etch line, and you can line up with the etch line, top and bottom. Now I'm going to come in with the Catching Rays from Catherine Pooler, which is a yellow, and we are going to pick up our ink, and we're going to do the same thing we did with the other one. I am going to leave the band about halfway down. I want a little more detail. This is a smaller design, and I want to get in there and get all those little leaves, and I want to get the detail of the pumpkin on there. So we're going to put that about halfway, the band, and pick up our ink, pushing side to side and applying ink to the card. We'll go all over, and what we have is the leaves and the little dots, and then we'll put a little detail on the pumpkin itself. We'll pull that off, and we'll move it over, and we will do the same thing on the other side. Again, we're using those alignment guides, lining everything up, picking up our ink, and going to town. So really, when you use our stencil brush, that big barrel is easy to hold on your hands. If you have trouble with your hands or you have arthritis, this large barrel, super easy to hold. And the fact that you can move that band back and forth on the base gives you flexibility. We're done with the yellow. We're going to pull the band up, put the lid on, and pull that stencil. And we are ready for stencil number 3. Again, we're using the alignment guides to line everything up, get it exactly where we want, and then adding our stencil tape. Stencil number 3 will give us the stem for the pumpkin and the stem for that little flower design. So we're going to pick up, and I'm using Sandcastle, take our J brush, pick up our color. Now I'm going to pull that band almost down to the top, because what we have here is a very small area to cover. And I'm just going to do little semicircles all the way around and get all those little spaces covered. Now you want to look at those little stems and make sure that you have them all covered. We're going to pull this. Sweet. Move it over to the other side and do the same thing. So this offers you so many options. You can do this in different colors, and you could use this for scrapbook pages, mini albums. It's a really nice fall background. Let's do the same thing over here. So the brushes are made for dye-based ink, and they come unbanded. If you buy 6 or more brushes, we will give you the color card for free, and then you can punch and cut that and mark 1 brush per color, and you will have your brushes for your colors and stenciling. Now, I do use some brushes for pigment-based ink, like white ink, but I have a brush that I dedicate just for white for that purpose. Pull the band up, and then we're done with our stenciling. When I'm ready to get my pieces so that I can adhere them to the card front, I'm going to take my Undu, and I'm going to pick that card up and slide the Undu underneath, and that will allow me to release that from the card base so that I don't tear up my card. And now I am ready to adhere these pieces to my card. We'll put tape on the back and adhere. There we go. We've got our inside and our outside of our card completed. Now what I did, I took that mini scallop die and I cut the second to the largest mini scallop, and then I did the same thing with the oval. That's going to create that background that we need for the card going right here. So I have those ready to go. Now I have previously stamped and die cut my Pilgrim pieces, and those are ready to go. So I am ready to adhere all of these pieces together. So I have my pieces adhered to my oval, and I have that top of the hat. I tried to line up the 2 hats at the top so that I have them centered, and we'll be running that banner piece across the bottom and attaching this to our card front here. Now when we attach the oval, we want to keep in mind that we have that sentiment that we are going to be running across the bottom of the card. So you can kind of decide how you want to place that and take a look at it and figure, you know, get it centered top to bottom and everything. And I'll tell you what I like to do is take my card and hold it like this, get it where I want it, hold it like this and flip it over, and then just mark it on the back. And now I know that adhesive is going to be from the line down here. I'm not putting adhesive at the top. I'm only putting it from the line I drew down. So let's get our adhesive and place it on there, and we can adhere that to the card front. So we have our piece. We're going to lay that on the card front, center it side to side, and now we have that cute little panel on our card. I have the Misti stamp board that we're using for stamping today, and I have installed inside my Misti stamp board our stamper's window. And if you haven't seen this product, I'll put the video link in the description below that you can watch. But the great thing about the stamper's window is that you can die cut a piece, small piece like this, and stamp on it, and you don't have to have the magnet. So I am going to place my piece on here. This banner die that you're looking at here that I cut on the orange cardstock is in the Pilgrim stamp and die set. So we are going to get the correct sentiment and put our sentiment on there. And we are stamping Happy Thanksgiving. So we're going to push that down, get that centered where we want it, and then we'll pick it up and we'll be ready to stamp. So the great thing about that stamper's window is that it is holding that little piece intact, and I don't have to use the magnet. I'm going to stamp with the Memento ink, Tuxedo Black. It is my preferred stamping ink. It stamps well, gives good color, and then if you go to color with it with the alcohol-based markers, it does not bleed. So there's our Happy Thanksgiving. Now the great thing about it is, if I needed to re-ink, I can go back and re-ink and stamp, and it's going to hit in the exact same place every time. And there I go. I did not have to use a magnet. That's pretty sweet. So we've got our sentiment. We will add tape to the back of the sentiment and add that to the front of the card. There we go. Now what we need is to work on that piece on the inside that we're going to add our sentiment, so that we have something to stop the paper, so we actually have a stand-up card. Okay, so I have cut a piece of Cream's cardstock that measures 1 by 3.75, and we are going to put that on our stamp board and stamp that sentiment from the set. We are ready to use our foam tape to adhere this piece in. We're going to adhere it in so that the card will stand up, and you can decide where you want to put that on the inside of your card. I kind of like to do it about halfway. So we're going to take the foam tape. Now this is our foam tape, and it is unique because you can put your finger on it and just tear it. So you don't have to actually clip it with your scissors. Right there. So we'll remove the Easy Peel liner and set that in the middle of our card. Center it side to side, and we have just completed our first card for Card Making Day. I do hope there is butter for your roll and whipped cream for your pie. We are ready to move on to our second card, and for this card we're going to work with the zip strip. Now this zip strip die, this is what the packaging looks like. This is how I have it stored. I don't have one of the actual products here. This is how I store it. So the zip strip is a fun die because there's so many fun things you can do with it. Now I've already made this card, and here's the fun thing. When you send this to your friend or relative, they can literally pull this open and have that fun sentiment on the inside of the card. Friends like you cannot be replaced. So you can stamp whatever you want in the background, and then when they pull that open, they have a nice surprise. So you can also put a gift card in there, and they could pull that open and then pull out the gift card. It's just a really fun set. I have stamped that with the thankful sentiments, and you could say, my heart is full of thanks. Our family means everything to me. That was amazing. All these sentiments are sentiments that you could use in here. In this case, I used friends like you can never be replaced. And I'm going to show you how to make this fun card. So when we get started, we're going to make a jig. If you are not familiar with a jig is a thing that I use on a lot of my cards, and I use it because it's my pattern, it's my setup and placement, just like a woodworker would have. So we need to make a jig. Whenever I make a jig, I always ink the jig orange so that I can know when I get the die out, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember what that's for. I can even write notes on it, and get going. So what we need to do is make our jig for our card. So we're going to start with a piece of white cardstock, and this piece of cardstock is going to measure 4 by 5.25. Then we are going to take that zip strip die and we are going to set it in the middle of the card. Now you want to center it top to bottom and side to side. We're going to set that in place, and we are going to tape it in place so that it doesn't move when we run it through the die cut machine, and we're going to die cut. Take that out of the die cut machine and we will put our Undu on there, and that will easily release the tape for us, and then we'll peel off our die and we will have that piece cut the way we want it. Now what we want to do is take your scissors and get your scissors in there and clip out each one of those little pieces that's still attaching that zip piece in. So we're going to go all the way down. When we get to the end, we're going to cut that straight across, and then we're going to flip the piece, take your scissors and go back across, clipping each one, and we're going to pull that piece out. There we go. Now we're going to fold our piece in half, trim that, and we only need the bottom edge. So I am going to take my pen and mark this bottom edge, because that's how I'm going to use this for an alignment for my card front, and we need to mark it bottom edge. Now whenever I have a jig, I always ink it with orangey, so get your brush, ink it up, and you'll have these two pieces with orange ink on them, and you'll know what that's for. Now what we're going to do is take our card front, which again is 5.25 by 4, and we are going to lay this on the front of our card, line it up, and we are going to take this piece and we are going to set that right into that place. Now what we will do is flip this over, and we want to put a piece of tape all the way down the length of this and pull this off. Now you can see my piece has ink all over it because I've used it before, but you get the idea. Yours will be white because you haven't inked it yet. We're going to set that right on the front of the card, and then remove the jig, and we are ready for stencil work. So I'm going to bring in my grid pad. I'm going to tape this down, and we're going to go through and do the stencil work just like we did earlier. I set my stencils aside from earlier, so I still have the ink on them, and then we're just going to reuse them. So if you do this, just set them aside, and then when you go back in to do your other card, you already have that ink on your stencil. We're going to pick up our ink just like we did before. Remember, we're centering this top to bottom, side to side, however we'd like to do it, and we're going to apply ink. And when I do the pumpkins, I have the band all the way back on the J brush, and we are applying our ink to our card, and we will make the beautiful pumpkin background. I made several of these cards this week and sent them to friends, and I'm anxious to hear the responses from them. Take this off, And we are ready to put our second stencil on. Now, I know that zip strip piece in the middle looks a little odd, but that's okay. That's just where I've inked it several times. So we're going to come back in, line that back up over our pumpkins, pick up our second color. This is stencil number 2. We're using Catching Rays from Catherine Pooler. I'm going to pull that band up about halfway, come in and get our leaves. And you can certainly experiment with different colors and see what kind of combinations you come up with. I have some cards here I'm going to share with you, and you'll see the different colors that were used on them. There we go. And we're ready to take number 2 off. Pick up our brown ink, pull our band up so we can get those very, very small places filled in with ink. And you want to get ink really well over those center pieces where we have that mask in there with that zip strip, because that little paper that we put in there is going to act as a mask, and then we're going to go back in and remove it, and it'll just be a white space. So much fun! Let's remove that stencil, and you'll see there's our background. Now this all looks a little confusing right now because we have that ink piece on the top. What we're going to do is go back in with our Undu, and we are going to just let that soak in there and remove that. And again, I'm going to keep this and reuse it every time I make a card. I'm going to pull that piece of tape off. Undu is a solvent. Undu suspends adhesion when you have tape, so you can easily remove things, and then if you just let the tape sit, it'll dry up and it'll become sticky again. There's our card front. Now we've created our card front, and we are going to locate our die, and we are going to set that die right back over the front of our card, line it right back up where you had it, and we are going to die cut. Let's take our Undu, remove that tape, remove the die, and there we have our space perfectly aligned the way we want it. Now I love to add the word surprise. I am using the pull tab words stamp, and it has the word surprise on it. You could also you could stamp look or pull, however you want to do it. We are going to take our card, set that in the stamp board, and I am stamping the word surprise from pull tab words. So we'll pick that up. Now I am going to stamp that with the orange twist ink because I love the orange, the way it picks up with the pumpkins. Let's hit it one more time. Nice. There we go. And that part is done. We are creating a basic A2 card here. So to make the actual card base, we're going to take a piece of white cardstock, cut it 8.5 by 5.5, put it up on the scoreboard, score at 4.25, and then that'll be our basic card front. We've already used the two white card fronts that I have listed down here. We used one for the jig and one for the card front, and now we need an orange card front, and we want that to be 4.125 by 5.375. So it is ever so slightly larger than the piece that we just stenciled. So now the trick is, I have my sentiment. I am going to stamp "Friends Like You Cannot Be Replaced," and this sentiment strip comes from the Thankful Sentiments stamp set. So what we are going to do is go back and find the jig. Remember that jig? Here we go. We're going to remove this. We are going to set this on the bottom of our card and center it just like it was this piece of paper. So it's not going to be right on the edge, it's going to be slightly off the edge. Center it top to bottom, side to side, and we are going to set our stamp right inside there, and we'll have our placement perfectly. So let's pick this up, put it in our stamp board. There we go. We're going to push that down into the surface. We got to get it square. If we push it up against the side, we know it's square. So we're going to set that off. That's a 1/16 of an inch off on the sides and the bottom. We have our sentiment right there. Have it placed where we want it, and we're going to pull that off. We are ready to ink and stamp. We're stamping with the Memento black ink. Very nice. Got a really good deal there. Let's hit it again just for a good time. For a good time, hit it twice. There we go. Very nice. We are ready to put the two pieces together. So we are going to flip this over, add tape to the back all the way around, and I'm just skipping where that die is, where the die mark is. I'm just jumping over that. I'm not putting tape on it. Then I will center it side to side, put it on my card front, flip it over, and more tape on the back. Now I am ready to adhere that, center it on my card front, and I have just created a super fun card for a friend. There we go. So when I sent this card this week, I stamped my sentiment on there, and then I wrote a really nice note on the inside, note of encouragement for my friends. So super fun card. Now I want to show you, when your friend gets this, they're going to take that, peel that off, and right there, "Friends Like You Cannot Be Replaced." What a fun, fun card. Now, I do have other cards to share with you. This is the layered pumpkin stencil background with the sun setting panel. It's a new panel that we have. It cuts this base and the circles, and Diane Wilcox created this using the Cornfield Die and the mini fall set. Great work. Then we have a fun card from Diane Morris, and she's used the Pilgrim set on a Z fold. And here's what's really interesting. See, here's that layered pumpkin background. She used the Happy Thanksgiving stamp, this Happy Thanksgiving sentiment from the Happy Holidays Happy Flappy stamp. So there's a stamp set that matches the Happy Flappy that has Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Get Well on it. She used that up here. But interesting what she did with that picket fence. Instead of running that picket fence across the card, like I would have done, she adhered it to the card and then added the pumpkins with the pumpkin die. Great idea. This is another card from Diane Morris, stenciled background. She used the stripe stencil back here for this piece, used the pumpkin die, and then die cut the word grateful. So these are some very, very fun cards. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today on Card Making Day. I hope you've enjoyed these cards. I will link in the description below the products that we used, and remember, coupon code CARD, C-A-R-D, valid October the 5th through October the 12th, 2024 and it saves you 15% on all orders. God bless.